All right, we all know large language models are incredibly powerful, right? But they can also be, well, a little unpredictable. So how do you actually control them? Today, we're going to dig into a really cool tool that's built to do exactly that. And stick around, because it has a pretty surprising secret.
Yeah, this quote from an AI architect, it just cuts right to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? When you're building an app on top of an LLM, you're not just playing with incredible power. You're juggling some serious risk. The stakes are just incredibly high.
And really, that's the paradox, isn't it? These AI models are absolutely revolutionary, but they can also be, well, they can be incredibly brittle. What does that mean? It means just one clever prompt, one little trick, can make the model completely break its own rules. And that can lead to some really, really serious problems for everyone involved.
So let's get specific. What kind of risks are we talking about? Well, for starters, an unchecked LLM could just accidentally leak sensitive user info. Or, a user could throw in a clever jailbreak prompt that tricks the model into completely ignoring its safety settings. And once that happens, it could hijack other tools it's connected to, or even start spitting out toxic, harmful content, all from what looked like a totally harmless question.
Right, so this is the tightrope that every developer is walking. I mean, how do you lock things down and enforce safety rules without totally crushing the flexibility and the creativity that makes these models so amazing in the first place? Where is that perfect balance?
Well, it turns out the answer might be to build a dedicated safety layer around the model. Think of it as a special framework designed for this exact problem. It's all about turning your safety policies from just, vague hopes into concrete, automated rules.
And that framework is called Guardrails. The best way to think about it is like a thin, super smart layer that sits there and inspects everything going into the model and everything coming out of it. So instead of writing a bunch of messy, custom code to try and catch problems, you define what's okay and what's not in a really clear, simple way.
And look, this isn't some academic concept, okay? This thing is built for the real world, for production. For any developers watching, get this. It's a drop-in replacement for the standard OpenAI client. That is a huge deal. It's got this smart validation pipeline, and there's even a no-code wizard to help you get set up. It's really designed for you to use right now. Okay, and this is where we get to what I think is the most surprising part of this whole story. Because even though it has OpenAI right there in the name, this tool has a kind of a secret superpower.
Yep, you heard that right. Despite the name, you can use this entire Guardrails framework completely independently of OpenAI. I mean, no API key, no fees, nothing. You can run the entire setup for free right on your own local computer.
And just look at this comparison, it really shows you what a massive deal this is. On the one hand, you've got the typical cloud API way of doing things, right? You need API keys, it can get costly, and you're sending your data to a third party. But on the other hand, you have Guardrails paired with a local model. Suddenly, there are no API keys needed. It runs completely offline, it's totally free, and maybe most importantly, your data never leaves your machine. For privacy and control, this is an absolute game changer.
All right, so let's pop the hood and look at the mechanics. How does this whole safety pipeline actually work to protect your app? It's actually a really clever multi-stage process.
So, the framework operates in up to 3 stages. First, there's a pre-flight check. This happens before your prompt even gets to the model. It's your first line of defense, where you can screen for toxic stuff or mask out private info. Then there are input checks that can run at the same time the model is processing, kind of like a watchdog looking for sneaky things like prompt injections. And finally, you've got output checks. These run after the model has generated its response to make one last pass and catch anything bad before it ever reaches the user. It's pretty comprehensive.
And what happens when a rule gets broken? Well, you're in control. You can set it up to fail safe, which basically means it flags the problem but lets the app continue. Or you can have it fail secure, which is more strict. It'll just stop the whole process dead in its tracks if a violation is found.
So what kind of things can it actually check for? Oh man, a whole lot. It's got built-in checks for data protection, things like spotting personal info like emails and phone numbers or filtering out URLs. Then there's content safety, so it can moderate for things like hate and violence and detect those jailbreak attempts we talked about. It even helps with the quality of the output, like flagging when the model is hallucinating or just going way off topic.
And you can see from this example just how simple the setup can be. You're basically just telling the system, hey, when a prompt comes in, filter out any URLs and check it for toxic content. And when the response goes out, make sure there's no personal info in it. It's just a straightforward set of rules, really clean.
So this tool is obviously incredibly powerful, but the people who made it are super clear about one thing. It's not a magic wand. And that brings us to a really crucial, kind of sobering final takeaway. And this is it, the essential warning right from the source. Never trust even these guardrails. There should be a human in the loop. Look, no automated system is ever going to be perfect. For really critical stuff, you should never, ever completely take the human out of the equation. These tools are a massive help for sure, but they don't replace human responsibility.
And that's really the bottom line here. Guardrails give developers this incredible power to build much safer AI apps. They make safety something you can define, something you can configure, and something that's accessible to everyone. But at the end of the day, it's a very powerful tool in the toolbox. It's not a magical silver bullet that just makes all the problems go away.
So that leaves us with one final, and I think really fascinating question to think about. Now that these powerful, configurable, and even free AI safety tools are available to any developer, literally anywhere, what happens next? What kind of new, responsible, and safe AI applications are people going to build now that the guardrails are in all of our hands?